Welcome to Starseed Gathering podcast. This podcast is hosted by Annabelle Ivaya, intuitive mentor and healer. This platform welcomes all of the light workers, healers, and coaches from all around the globe to share their story, their awakening, their path, and their mission here on earth today. You will meet a beautiful soul today that wants to share their light with you. Allow the story that you will hear and all of the information to land within you like a breeze of love. I welcome you into this sacred space. Enjoy this podcast. Welcome to Starseed Gathering podcast. I'm Annabelle Vaya, your host, and I'm super excited to have a new person again this week to speak with me. It's such a lovely time where I love to share about what people do because yeah, we're all so unique. We all have a very different path to get from where we started our life, which sometimes can be very tumultuous in different ways, to get to supporting others through many different ways. And it's such a pleasure to have you with me, Alycia. Welcome to the show. You
Thank you.
use yourself, you use grief healer to describe yourself. So I'm very intrigued about your story and to know more about what you offer and how you actually got to share your gifts with the world. But what happened in your life so that you decided to do this work? So please share anything that's
Yeah.
relevant to our conversation. Beautiful. Welcome again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I've gotten into this flow of just wanting to share my story because unfortunately, a part of the human experience is grief. And so it's not something we can all hide from, even though many of us may attempt to. And so I think that conversations around grief can create a lot of healing for us. And my journey started. Like many people, I grew up in a very religious household and thought that was the one and only way of existence. And then I started to see other truths and realities, and I started to like have conversations and meet new people that I was like, well, that's not what we talked about at church. Like, what? But that's such a good person. Okay. And so I started asking myself the questions. And then about 3.5 years ago, my mother was really ill. This was during lockdown going on, so lots of doctor's appointments. And after 2 years of trying to get a diagnosis, we unfortunately got a diagnosis of cancer with her. And at that same time, I was feeling so lost and exhausted. And I just knew there had to be something more. Like, I feel so alone and lost. What is there? And I remember mindlessly scrolling on TikTok one day, and there's this lovely soul. And I was like, I don't understand what she's talking about, but I want to feel that. I want to experience whatever this happiness is that she's experiencing. So I started to follow her, and so many things were resonating. And she calls herself the energy queen, and she shifts energy. And that's when I really started to dive into energy and what that is, and the connections with spirit and our guides and all of that during the hardest times of my life. It was really challenging. My mom was in the hospital. I think we counted it was like 76 days the summer of 2022. And unfortunately, by the time they found her cancer, it had progressed so far that she was gone before too much could be made progress for her. And so um, less than 5 months after her diagnosis, we brought her home for home hospice, and just 2 days after her birthday, she transitioned over to the other side. And I found myself in a really heavy spot, and the denseness was just overwhelming because I prided myself on being her advocate at her doctor's appointments. I had Excel spreadsheets of her pain and like what times we were giving her her pain medicine and how efficiently it worked. And I would go in with notebooks of like questions to ask the doctors and like, hey, this happened, because I kept believing if I say the right thing in front of the right medical professional, we can solve this. This is like fixable, you know? And um, part of the grief that I started to experience when she transitioned over, and I use the phrase transitioned over now because I think it's such a beautiful way of saying that they're humans not here, but they're still with me. And I talk to my mom all the time. So to anyone who may not understand what I was saying, like when I say she transitioned over, she had passed away. And the grief I felt was a lot of shame that I didn't fix it and guilt. And I got a promotion like, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks after she transitioned over. And it was like, oh gosh, okay, so now she's gone and my life is getting better. So then I started to feel guilt about that. And so she like it's like I created the story of she had to die in order for me to move forward in my life. And the position that I was in was an opportunity that allowed me to travel for my day job. And so then I was going to places I had never been before. And it was like, wow, all of this. And during that time, I was still dipping my toes in the energy. And but I was also listening to what everyone was telling me. Everyone was like, you have to go to grief counseling and you need a grief therapist and you have to like allow yourself to wallow in the pain. And I understand there isn't a meaning and a purpose for us to go through our emotions. And they're all valid and we're supposed to allow ourselves to feel it. I really don't feel like there are emotions that are wrong. It's all about what you do with that emotion and how long you allow yourself to sit in that space. But about 5 months after she transitioned over, the the energy person that I had introduced myself to basically reached out because I had signed up for like monthly healing sessions with her and I had not made an appointment with her since my mom passed because it was like, no, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to grief therapy. And at the end of every session with grief therapy, I felt more hopeless than I had felt before going in. And I was like, is this like what it is? And so she was like, do you want me to just like refund you? Or like, do you want to make an appointment? And first off, I was like struck by the fact that she even offered that and reached out in that way. And I was like, well, what do I have to lose? It's just going to be another appointment where maybe I feel worse than I did before, just like in therapy. So, I had a session with her in the first 5 minutes. We were just talking, and I was telling her how I was trying to do everything right. I was like, I was journaling and I was going to therapy and I was doing this and that. And I was like, and I feel more hopeless than ever. And I was like, she's like, well, do you want me to help you or do you want to sit in the space? And I was like, do you think you can? And she was like, well, I know I can if that's what you're actually ready for and that's what you want to step into. And I'm telling you, we did amazing life altering energy session. And it was supposed to be an hour long. I think we ended up talking for an hour, but the session was very small. And, we were able to see that I had a couple of grief spirits attached to me that were just also bringing my energy down. We were, this always brings up my emotions, but it's so beautiful. It was the first time I heard my mom's voice again. And it was just left me feeling so much hope. And so I kind of rode that train for a while and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like when I say I felt like my life shifted in that little phone call, I'm telling you it shifted. And I still am sad that her human's not here and I miss her, but I talk to her and I connect with her all the time, and it's different. It is a different level. It's not an all-consuming sadness. It might be a brief moment and then we carry on, and I've had lovely conversations with my mother and with my grandmother, and it's just opened up this whole world of me connecting with my guides in such beautiful ways and connecting with the spirit of love specifically. And like recently over the last 6 months, it was like, no, if I can do this for one other person that she brought into my world, then why wouldn't I do that? And so that's when I started to dive into this beautiful opportunity of allowing other people to understand grief in the way that I did, because it's not an end game, it's not the end point. To me, grief is an opportunity to like expand and understand and grow in so many beautiful ways. And so that's how I kind of got to where I am of offering the sessions that I offer. And I have this beautiful idea now for this beautiful group program that I'm going to do next year called For the Love of Your Grief, which will be all about creating the community and shifting the energy. And it's not about you never being sad that somebody is not here with us anymore, but it's about understanding that your connection can grow in so many beautiful ways, and opportunities get to come because my mom is not here on the human form, but I know she is helping to master plan things behind the scenes for me. And I know that like opportunities such as the fact that I asked if I could be on this podcast, the fact that I want to share my voice and speak was not something that a year ago I would have been comfortable in doing. I would have been like, you want me to what? Like, I don't know how to even do that. And so it's turned into this beautiful way of me like hearing my voice and using it, because the more I share my story, somebody who may be ready to release that grief may hear my story and feel hope and then dive into their own journey of doing it. And it's not that I'm a miracle worker and the only person that can do this, but I lived this amazing experience that was really challenging and dense for so long. And now I get to share the opportunity of seeing it through a new light. And so that's my story of where I am now and how I got here.
I love it. It's really touching to hear you talk about, how you could connect to your mother. I remember the grandparents and everyone was most of them were passed on, well, yeah, had transitioned when I was
Yeah.
4 or 5. So
Okay.
I didn't really meet them, but the first person that I really loved so much and that passed away was my aunt, and she had cancer for many many years, and she was away in another town, so we wouldn't see each other so much. But when you see someone in your family and you're like, oh my god, it's like it feels like she's my sister, right? It felt
Yeah.
so close. And she was probably the one that I was the closest to in my family. And that's interesting because before I started to do my my all of the courses and certificates to learn about energy and
Yeah.
mediumship and all of those things. She passed away a couple years before, prior to that. And then I remember in one of the group sessions, she came through someone else. When we were practicing mediumship, and I was like, oh, sobbing, right? Because you're like, it was just so out of the blue, like, oh, she came for me, like she's here. It was like just so
I love
intense.
that.
It was really beautiful. And now since I have those gifts myself, she does drop sometimes. I remember a few times I was feeling low and sad, and I remember how her hugs were comforting, and energetically I would close my eyes and I would feel like she would hug me even if she was not there, like physically, like
Yes.
it could mimic again this comforting feeling. And so it's just so beautiful. And as you said, I do believe that once they are on the other side, they have so much more power and how they can support us. So I know they were super meaningful in our life during this incarnation
Mhm.
at the physical level, but there's so much more they can do now that they are on the other side. So that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's their story isn't done because their human isn't here anymore, and I love that. And I love when people somebody did a reading over me, and they're like, "Oh, you and your mom have been together for lives. Like you guys have bounced back and forth in each other forever." And I was just like, "Well, that's kind of fun. Like I love that idea that like in a past life I was her mom for once." And I was like, "That makes sense. We had such a beautiful connection." And she wasn't the perfect mother because perfection doesn't exist, but we had a beautiful connection, and it's beautiful to say that you can have that connection even when they're not here anymore. And this beautiful thing, my dad had to go through this medical procedure that I was a little bit anxious about. I was supposed to go out of town at the same time, and I was like, if this gets if it turns back, because it was a heart procedure. So I was like, if then I'm canceling. And I talked to the person that I was supposed to be visiting, and she was like, okay, well, you have to do what you have to do, but have you talked to your mom? And I was like, well, no, I haven't. And this was, after I had connected with her, but in the anxious moment that I had, I hadn't. And she was like, your mom wants to know why you're not talking to her. Like, talk to her. And so then, my dad and my sister was at the hospital, and I like sat there, and the procedure kept getting delayed. So that's it. That just creates more anxiety, like another emergency came first. They bumped him back again. It happened 3 times one day. So his procedure was supposed to be at 7:30 a.m. and it wasn't until I think it was close to 5 o'clock that he ended up going back. And I was sitting there, and finally listened to my friend and her guidance, and I was like talking to my mom, and she was like, "Do you really think I'm not taking care of this? Like, we're fine. He's going to be fine. He's going to be home tonight. Do you have the soup on the stove?" Because that was like a big thing that my family did. Like, when you're sick, you make homemade soup because it's so easy. And I was like, "Well, no, I don't have soup on the stove." I'm like, she's like, Do what you do. Go make your soup. He's going to want some when he gets home. He hasn't been allowed to eat all day because of this procedure." And I was like, all right. And so I was like making the soup, and then my sister called and was like, well, they finally took him back, and they're already done. And I was like, what? Like, how long ago did they take him back? And they're like, well, they did one more scan before they were going to do whatever the procedure was. I can't even remember right now. And his heart healed itself. Because what had happened was like one of his arteries was blocked enough where they were talking about how they were gonna like see if they could do a stent, but it might have to be a bypass. And they were like, no, his heart's getting all the blood it needs because new veins have been created. And I like sat there, and like, wouldn't you know it, my mom, I heard her clear as day, was like, I told you. We're taking care of it. It's not his time. We're good. And so then it was like, oh my goodness, this is pretty cool. And I had never had that kind of an experience with spirit or anyone. And so I was just like sat there, and I was like, well, all right then. I got the soup done. And she's like, yep, put it on to Summer. He's gonna be home in 40 minutes. And so um it's just beautiful. And like the more I don't think like, oh, how's that gonna help that? Then it's like, oh no, it is. And the more we understand spirit and grow, and like, well, okay, I don't really understand it, but let me lean into it and see what happens. Like, well, there's pretty cool experiences that get to happen in our life?
Definitely. And it's like developing this trust, right? That we're not alone, that, we've planned to have supporters here and outside of this realm throughout their incarnation. And then once we recognize when we need support and we ask for help and we allow the help to come too. It's not about being controlling, because I remember a few people were like, well, I can't ask for everything. I'm like, yeah, of course you're not gonna ask for everything, but when you feel like it's a bit outside of what you can manage, why don't you ask for support, for clarity, for signs? I mean,
Yeah.
it's there for us, because I think all of the beings on the other side are like, man, being on Earth is not the easiest place. So let's try to do anything we can to support them from there.
Yes, they like want to help us so much. And we close that door so often. And so it's been this beautiful journey of just allowing it not to make sense and it makes perfect sense at the same time, you know? And that's the beauty of it. Like that's the joy of it. I know so many people are talking about how like it's almost the end of the year and they're like 2024 was a rough one. And I was like, really? Like that? Like, oh my gosh, there's so many blessings. And I'm not saying I didn't have challenges or anything like that, but I do also think that if all you do is focus on like the hardest year of your life, then you're attracting more of the hardest year of your life, you know? And everyone receives a blessing at some point in their life, whether it is, you know, you didn't think you had any money and then you found a $10 bill you forgot you had in a coat, you know, or, you know, somebody held the door open for you, or you got a free cookie somewhere, you know, like whatever it is, we have all these opportunities to show acknowledgement to the appreciation of our blessings. And Spirit's like, all right, well, she really acknowledged that one. Like, let's just make her feel good. And I'm not going to say that, you know, my life has been like nothing but cherry on top since I've opened up this world, but there is this new perspective of like, even when there's denseness, there's shifting that can take place so that we can open up and learn and grow from that, you know?
Definitely. It feels like, I know for me, it was a big confirmation that, this feeling of loneliness through everything kind of was melted away when I connected to my team of light. And I was like, oh my God, I have all of you like supporting me and I can ask and I
Yeah.
can feel you now that I'm open. I can hear you and I can see things. And I was like, oh, it's just so different. And I'm not saying I know some of the watchers are maybe not going to be able to have all of their clear senses developed to the finest levels yet. But the more you practice, the more you allow yourself to be open to it, the more you're going to see they are just right there. But sometimes we, as you said, we close the doors. And for me, it was very, I've had lots of trauma in my life. So I think and the trauma kind of brings you to this like I'm so alone and it's hard and whatever, right?
Mhm.
But then at some point when you connect to these beings, as you said, the challenges you see that the challenges made you become who you are. I wouldn't have all of those clear senses activated if I had not gone through all of that. I know it was all part of how I was going to develop through this soul journey. So it's like appreciating the challenges, seeing the lessons you've learned, seeing the magic in your life, even if it's a small thing, because we're
Mhm.
I think if there's been so much misleading, I don't know if it's the correct word to describe it, but like in manifestation, it's not only about the big houses and the big car. It's more about like, do you feel good in what you're doing? Do you attract the right people to you? Do you feel like your purpose is lived through you? Do you feel joy? Do you feel love? Like this is more what we're supposed to be experiencing here, but it's going back to this connection to ourselves and then welcoming other beautiful beings around us, right?
Yeah, there's a beautiful shift that happens with that. And I think that you touching base on the manifestation of it is like the easy topic that a lot of people start talking about is like, how do you manifest this or that? And like, do this and write this 975 times. And we create all these new rules around it. And the beautiful thing that I was talking to somebody about, and I was like, you know, I told myself a long time ago that I just wanted to be safe in my community. I wanted the people around me that I knew I could lean on them whenever I needed to. And I said the interesting thing happened was there are people no longer in my life. And it was really it was a challenge because it was like, why are these people not contacting me again? Like they're not responding. They're not making that effort. And there was this message from Spirit about how like you wanted to be and the people that were going to uplift you, but also challenge you to like be the better version of yourself often. And to do that, we had to get rid of the people that were hindering you from being yourself. Because you can't be a better version of yourself if you're hiding from who you are. And it was like a little slap on the wrist, because it was like, oh, I was surrounding myself with people that I felt like I couldn't be completely authentic with. And that like was a wake up. And it was like, okay, so it's not um the abundance that I feel in the relationships I have isn't in number anymore, where I used to pride myself on how, like I've been a bridesmaid 14 times, like I'm the friend, like people depend on me. And then it's like, well, that number doesn't exist, but the value and the quality of the people I've surrounded myself in the last couple of years has shifted. And it's also been a limitless of support of allowing me to like understand who I am authentically. Like that's been a huge part of this, and that's part of why I've stepped into wanting to help people in this beautiful way because like it's like, well, nobody needs to feel that pain. Nobody needs to get lost and feel like they're stagnant in their grief or anything like that. So if nobody else is going to do it how I wasn't able to do it, then like I'll just do it, And it's like I don't, and I look at it now and I was like, oh, well, if I had tried to tell so and so that I was doing this, that would have felt judgy, like I know the response I would have gotten. And so there's that beautiful shift that happens with the people around you. So now you can say, there is safety around me. There is people who not even that they understand it, but they're okay with not understanding it, but seeing my joy. And that's beautiful. Because I think if everyone could just manifest one thing, I feel like it would be to feel love and joy every day. Like, because then everything else will just fall into place, because you're just a joyful, loving being. And when you're loving and you're happy, you feel confident to put yourself out there and to try new things. And so the confidence comes and you see opportunities that you're like, well, why wouldn't I be the one that they offer that to? So I'm going to say yes to that. And so it's just like a whole embodiment that can happen with connecting with your spirit guides and your ancestors in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I think I think your guides can be kind of funny. Well, you asked for that. You didn't say that. That was the consequence of you asking to have most aligned people around you. Yeah, I can definitely say see how that happens, right? But then people that are not matching your frequency, if they don't leave, they take space for somebody that does. So, and for me, I've never had like big groups of people. It was always like just a few. And now, of course, like the more we're authentically ourselves, the more we attract people that are matching that or that love that frequency that we share. So it's a lot more supporting, and we need people like that in these missions that we have. I mean, it's not always going against the grain, right? It's okay that not everybody's gonna understand what we do and not everybody is our client.
Hmm.
That's fine. But you also want some, because we also shift, right? It's like I still shift every time I move, because people know here in this podcast I move a lot, and every time that I connect to new land points and different people and all of that, and we all have layers. We continue to heal, and sometimes we need all,
Hmm.
even if we help others, we also need our people, right? We're not
Yes.
always wanting to be alone doing all of the things on our own anymore. So having this clearing of people that are not really the best people for us, whoever they are, allows more people to be magnetized to us and be the support that we need for whatever. And as you said, I think it's important that not everybody's gonna understand what we do, because it's such a different type of world that we live in. But
Hmm.
at least if they're supportive, at least if
Yeah.
they're just present when you need something, someone to talk to, or they're just nice to be around. That's good, It's, I think we
Yeah.
all have a different way of ascending, and we have to respect that and
Hmm.
be there for each other. So I love that you're sharing that.
Yeah, and not burning the bridges of the people, like I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, well, there. I'm still their friend, and we are still friends just because we haven't talked for a few months or anything like that, because I know life is also cyclical and it moves constantly. And so there's going to be more opportunity and there's going to be more flow, and who knows what will happen down the road. But I know that if my phone rings, I pick up, and that's who I get to be. And it doesn't have to be like a, well, you didn't and I didn't. It's not a tit for tat thing. It's just like a going with the flow and allowing the flow to be as neutral and natural as possible.
Definitely, definitely. Is there anything that you haven't spoke about that you'd love to share with the audience, beautiful soul, before we end?
Um, Well, I briefly spoke about it, but I love to have little conversations with the spirit of love specifically. And I'll give you a link if you want to put it in the show notes for a free activation with the spirit of love. It's just a simple little, it's not very long at all, but it just activates your connection with the spirit of love, because one thing that I've learned is that the spirit of love and all of its connections to us, so like affection and all of that, sometimes just feels ignored and feels like we're not connecting with them. And so I love to just, check in every day and allow the spirit of love to pour unconditional love over me every day. And it gets to be as simple as that. And that's something too that I think can be so vital for people is you don't have to like sit in a room with candles lit and like the perfect temperature and your perfect meditation outfit. You can literally be, if you're working at a computer, you can be like, Spirit of love, just please let me feel your unconditional love for me right now. And just allow it to, like, I literally just got shivers up my back and it feels like an arm went around my shoulder. And it gets to be that simple. It doesn't have to be a convoluted, like, 8-minute prayer that you say or anything like that. Because spirit in all of its parts just wants to love on us and support us in whatever way we want. And so, if anyone is having like that moment where you're feeling a little stagnant and you're like, oh, like what is going on with my life? Like, I don't have all the answers. Like, maybe just connect in and ask for a little unconditional love to pour through you and see how that makes you feel for the rest of the day. Like, it gets to be that quick and it gets to be that simple. At least that's my opinion. I'm all about like let's create ease, and like how I shift energy. It's all about like allowing it to be as easy and like simple as possible. That's the life that if we're talking about manifestation, that's what I've been manifesting. Like I want a life of ease. I don't set an alarm anymore, and I'm still up in plenty of time for like my day jobs and my calls or anything like that. And um I used to think that it had to be like a 10-point step of like what I was supposed to do. And like you kneel by the foot of the bed and you do this and you do that. And it's like, I sometimes I'm making toast and I'm just like, oh, I'm just feeling out of it today. Like, let me feel some love and joy right now, And it's that simple, I think sometimes we as humans make things a lot harder than it has to be by creating all of these rules of religion or spirituality, and that just stops so many people from taking this step. Like I'm not huge on routines. Like I wash my face, brush my teeth, and hydrate my skin, and that's about my routine in the morning. But I just allow myself to flow and connect when I need to connect, and when I want to connect. And so, if you're not a routine person, it doesn't have to be a routine. It doesn't have to be like a 10-step guide. It's simply like, I mean, how long would that take you? Like 8 seconds to ask the spirit of love to just show you love right now, and then like allow yourself to feel it, and then you will. It's that simple.
I love it. Oh yeah, I so agree because for me, I think what kind of frustrated me at first with the whole spiritual stuff was like why do I have to write that all so many times? Like my wrists hurt, my fingers hurt now. I don't like it. And then I would get frustrated through the process. I was like, that's probably not the energy I'm supposed to be doing that with. And then I wouldn't see things coming up either. Like my reality was not changing. And I was like, why am I even doing that? And then when I started to embody more energies and understand the way it works, then it was like, we're not going to make it complicated. And with my clients, with the group work, with anything that I don't like, it has to come easy. Otherwise, you won't do it. And I think that some teachers, I think they have their heart on their sleeve and they want to support and they want to make it so complete. But even
Hmm.
like the prayers before going to bed and all of those things. And I think for me, it's just like I want it to be easy because I know myself, I will not repeat it every night if it's complicated. And I don't want it to become a task. I want to feel that it's a routine that feels, as you said, in the flow of me, and
Yeah.
find what works for you. If you love to read something every day, but it makes you feel good, do it. If it doesn't make you feel good, don't do it. Just find something
Yes.
that feels good to your heart. What would it be to just say, Spirit of love, look after me all night long when I'm sleeping? I'm just like feeling full of chills
Yes.
just saying that.
Yes.
It's
What a
like,
lovely night's sleep you'll have.
right. And then you're
Yeah.
like, that's it. That's it. Yeah, you don't have to make it complicated. And I think I love that you're reminding us all of that. I think I'm seeing that in my one-on-ones in my groups, but I think it's a good reminder for anyone that's watching, do things that feels good and is easy to you. I mean, some people, it will be while they're walking. That's how they meditate.
Hmm.
That's when
Yeah.
they're close to a tree. It's like when they look at a flower, they drink their coffee. I mean, it doesn't matter. Spirit, as you said, they're not complicated. We make it complicated, but for them, it's like, just open the door. We're right there.
Yes. They're like, we're waiting for you. Like
Right.
we're at the hinge. Just open it a little bit. We'll slip in.
Exactly, exactly. Such a beautiful soul you are. Tell us a little bit more about your services, like the way, like if people, we're gonna put all of your contacts below this video. So if anyone wants to connect with you, I understand you do more one-on-one calls. Like, is there any
Hmm.
programs you go through? Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so right now I'm doing one-on-ones. I do 30-minute sessions or 60-minute sessions. And I have two different price points. So I open up my books for 5 people every month to have a discounted price because I want to be accessible to everyone. And then I offer my regular price sessions on top of that. And then going to be a beautiful, kind of smallish group size because I think talking about grief, I want it to be as safe and a safe space for anyone to be vulnerable and to grow and really heal in. And so it's going to be smaller groups, but I'm going to start running a group program on the regular and I'm calling it For the Love of Your Grief. And it's all about healing your grief with love. And it'll be I'm really excited about it. When I got that download, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted in 2022 when I was like, when you're sick of being so sad, you're sick of everything making you cry. Like I remember picking out this is so silly, but like my mom and I both loved acorn squashes, and I remember crying picking out an acorn squash a couple months after she passed. And it was like, I don't know why the squash that day triggered the tears, but it was like, oh. And then when like Sarah reached out to me finally, thank God she did. It was like, I'm so sick of feeling this way. I'm so ready. And I want to create the safe space for everyone to have the grief that they need, but to know that it doesn't have to be how everyone has written it in a textbook. Because I followed the textbook and it didn't work for me. And so I'm creating the group program that I wish was available for me then. And I've also started a podcast called I Say Yes and it's all about saying yes to the beautiful messages and signs and like things that you see, but taking it a step further and doing something. So, we receive beautiful downloads and we see beautiful signs all the time, and we just say yes. And then sometimes you don't do anything. There's no momentum with it. And so like recently I got the idea like, what if you started to play with watercolors? And I was like, well, that's a fun idea. And then if I hadn't ordered the supplies and like started to play with the water, I wouldn't have figured out like, oh, I kind of like this. I love this like way for me too. And now I'm creating my own little like Oracle deck for me to use in my sessions because like, oh, I love this and I love the downloads I'm getting while I'm painting. And so my podcast is all about saying yes to the messages we receive and then taking it that step further so that it actually impacts our life in a beautiful way.
Oh, it really feels so new earth, everything that you're sharing. I love it so much because that's such a big part that I do a channeling course. It's not only about opening your channels because your responsibility is to do something with what you receive. I'm doing my first in-person retreat in 2025, but how many years have I heard that, right? And they were like, well, you're gonna have to do your retreat. And I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And it took me so many years to actually be, of course, I've been moving and I felt like, oh, the energies are this or that, right? And now I don't have all of the things. I have most of it. So many downloads are coming through, but still, right? I needed to do
Yeah.
it. I could have just said, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm so shy. What if, what if, what if? But yeah,
Yeah.
because that's how we grow. We grow as the spiritual beings that we are with the goals that, I think what I'm sensing is that our higher self has this big plan, right? You're supposed to be doing this and that. And, they're going to give us, chances. If we don't do it the first
Yeah.
time, they're going to send it again and again and again. But, if you want to be on point with what your soul came to be doing here, or just to be actually, you need to do the things, and even more so those are completely outside of your comfort zone, because that's because your soul is ready, your little human ego isn't, but that's okay. You'll be okay, and you'll have all of this beautiful
Yeah.
team behind you. So I love that you're doing this podcast, because I feel it's really going to help people, or it's already doing it, right? Helping people
Yeah.
understand the power in when you say yes to the things that you're receiving. It's not because we're not just receivers, we need to enact on what we're receiving too.
Yeah. So we can receive more. Like if a friend of yours keeps talking to you and you ignore them all the time, they're gonna stop speaking. So like I don't want them to stop speaking. I want to still be connected with the muses and all the spirits and receive because I don't know what's happening in my life in the future and it's a fun place to play. But I'm
Yeah.
supported the whole time. So that's
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
So
And
saying yes to
that's the
that.
shift. That's the shift. I love it. Love it. What would you love our beautiful viewers to leave this podcast with today after this lovely conversation? What would be
Yeah.
your last words for today?
My last words. Well, to anyone who has ever experienced grief, which is probably at least everyone, um, you're not alone. And it is a part of the human experience, and everyone gets to experience grief how they want, and they also get to shift away from it so that it becomes the beautiful life that they're deserving. And if anyone has listened to my story and it leaves you feeling any level of hope, then that's exactly why I was supposed to be here. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have hope for more in our life, then we're missing something. And I just want everyone to know that you're not alone. We're all figuring out this journey together. And it's a fun ride when you don't know what's coming down the pike. But just know you're not alone and that we are loved more than we can even wrap our heads around. And yeah, if you haven't connected to the spirit of love, I really take a moment and just say real quickly and allow that to pour into you because that's a game changer. So yeah, I think that's it. So just have some hope and connect with love.
So beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being with us, for talking about this subject that I believe is probably one of the, well, maybe twice I've spoken about grief in the podcast, and I'm probably around 35 or 40 episodes now. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I love that you share something very specific to your story, but help people from your heart space, and also are, creating so many beautiful things to help others to connect to who they truly are beyond their grief. And thank you so much for being with us, Alycia. Pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I've loved this conversation.
You're so welcome. So every contact information will be below. If you need anything, please contact her. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, beautiful souls.
Bye.